So we're going to download my favorites in food. And these are going to go into, my favorites goes into lesson 3. Food is going to go into lesson 3 media. And let's see, we're going to go ahead, view that in the folder. Here's what it looks like right now. Get rid of that one. And we are going to be basically practicing the different loops by doing little variations on this page. So you're going to start with the code, and you'll just do a while loop, and then you're going to save it as a for loop and a do while loop. Okay, so we've downloaded it. We need to create a favorite food array. Ask the user how many foods they want to enter. Check it to make sure they've entered a valid number. Create a counter. Then we're going to do a loop. And we're starting here with a for loop. And so we're going to stay in the loop, you know, as long until they enter the number of items that they indicated. And then we're going to display those items back. We're going to do a little heading, going to read through the array, display them to the page. So this logic is very similar to what you have to do. Okay, so we got magic numbers. How many lucky numbers do you have? We're actually validating that. We're reading it in here, validating that it's a number, and if it's not, we're being mean and we're staying in the loop and we're forcing them to enter a number. Okay. Then we've got a counter and a display counter because we have to read the stuff in and we'd have to display it back. Here we set the counter to 0. We're going to stay in the loop as long as it's less than the number they entered. Increase by 1 every time. And then because we're starting at 0, when we actually display the prompt, we don't want to say enter number 0, right? We want to say enter number 1, enter number 2, whatever. So that's why we have a display counter. We're just adding 1 to it so that it looks good to the user. And once we fill it in, then we're going to use document write line, and we're going to display it back. Okay, so you are going to do something very similar. In fact, you know, if you don't like to type, you probably can copy that and modify it. Okay, but keep in mind, we're not doing magic numbers here, we're doing food. So I'm going to go ahead and edit favorites here. And let's see, so we've got all of that set up. And you can see in the body, we have the script tag. The reason that we have to put this in the body is because we are using document write. And let's see, so instead of magic numbers, we are dealing with food. How many favorite foods do you have? Okay, and that looks fine. Please enter a valid number. How many favorite foods do you have? We've got a counter and a display counter. Get into our for loop that is going to fill in our food array. Okay, so this is food that we're filling in, that food array. Okay. And I would probably say enter food number. Okay. And the first time through, it'll say 1, then it'll say 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And whatever they enter goes into my food array. Then I get down here and I'm going to display it back. And I believe I need a heading. So let me look over here. Okay, so we're prompting for the food. And so our heading is, here are your favorite foods. So right here is where I want that text to go. So I've got my heading that I'm writing out. And I'm putting this in a bulleted list. So I've got the opening UL tag. And then I've got a counter. And I'm going to stay in this as long as it's less than the number they entered. And then I've got this document.write. So here's my LI. And I'm grabbing everything from my food array. And then here's my ending LI. And you notice I'm concatenating them in this document write. Okay, so that looks good. I do another document write with my closing UL. And those 4 loops should be fine. So what I'm going to do is save this, Control and S. Then I'm going to come out here and reload. How many favorite foods do you have? 3. Pizza, tacos, Jelly Bellies. All right, so that worked. Now, that's the first little program I need to do. Now, the second and third are variations of the first. So what I'm going to do is save this under a different name. So instead of my favorites, I'm going to call this my favorites while loop. And that still goes in lesson 3. So what I need to do is convert this into a while loop. And so I've got 2 for loops that I have to convert. And with a while loop, all you've got is the condition. Okay, so that means I've got to take the counter and the semicolon and move it before the while loop. I think I accidentally got rid of that. Here we go, try that again. All right, so I've got the counter. I'm initializing to 0, so I might as well just do it like this. Get it out of there. And then, as far as incrementing the counter goes, I'm going to get rid of this semicolon here. All I have to do is move this to the bottom of the while loop. So I'm going to move it here, press enter, and place a semicolon at the end. Now I have to do the same basic thing with my next while loop. So I take my counter with the semicolon, move it above the while loop, take the increment And I'm going to move it to the bottom of that loop. And add my little semicolon here. Get rid of the extra semicolon in my condition area. So at this point, I have converted the for loop into a while loop. You can see I'm initializing the counter at above the while, and I increment the counter at the bottom. So let me save this. And I believe I called this thing my favorites while loop. How many favorite foods do you have? 2. Pizza, lobster. All right, so that one worked. And now we really only have one more left to do. It's a do while. And it may be easiest to start from the while loop. So I'm just going to save this under a different name. Make sure you save your changes for the while loop first, and then save it under a different name. So this is going to be do while. All right, and so for the do while loop, the condition is at the bottom. So I'm going to take this condition, move it to the bottom, and put a little semicolon after it, and add the keyword do to the top. Whoops. Oh, I love my laptop. Okay, there. All right, so I've got do while, and I'm going to do kind of the same thing here. Let me move this to the bottom. Add semicolon, put the keyword do up at the top, and that is all you need to do to convert a while loop to a do while loop. Remember, the primary difference is that we're forcing them to go through the loop one time. Okay, so basically having 0 for your food is not going to work. So in real life, we probably would change this little prompt to make sure they don't enter 0. But I'm not going to make you guys do that. So I'm going to go back out here, and I'm going to change this to do while. How many favorite foods do you have? I got 2, food 1, pizza, tacos, and that worked as well. Okay, so at this point, you are now done with my favorites.